Well, a movie is set to be filmed in Regina. When's the last time you've heard that? The title of this movie is called Indians in Cowtown. And with me in the studio are two key players in this project. Agam Darshi is an actor and you are a writer and you wrote and you're producing this piece. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
And also with us is Anand Ramayya, president of a very successful film production company in Saskatoon called Karma Films. Welcome.
Thank you, Costa.
And I also want to embarrass you. You are one of the favorite sons of Larange, are you not? Because that's where you grew up. I've heard that that everyone knows you there, of course. Well, it's really good to see both of you here. Thank you for joining me. We're going to find out more about this really interesting movie project in a second. But first, I want to give people at home a chance to see some of the great work you've produced. And here's a sampling of it right now.
Thank you.
We're way past making friends, Riva. We've already had Antimutant Graffiti and vandalism.
We're coming to their homes and telling them to go.
Hey, you think I want this? I want to be building playgrounds in the park, but what good is it when our kids are too scared to go out?
But as you know, or would know if you weren't psychotic, it could be a lot worse. It could be an indicator of surgical complications like infection or cerebral ischemia.
I'm not psychotic, I'm just tired. Oh my God.
Either take the pill or I'm gonna knock you out.
So there's a sample of your work. Good work, guys. I think you've done okay so far. Really happy to have you here in Regina. Agam, I want to ask you about this movie. You wrote it, you're producing it, you're going to be acting in it. Indians in Cowtown. Give me the 30-second pitch. What's it all about?
Oh my gosh, it's about a Sikh Punjabi family living in Calgary, Alberta. So it centers around a character named Mona, who is, you know, a bit of a failure at life, as we all are sometimes. And she goes back home to live with her father, who is sick with cancer. And she ends up taking care of him, but ends up taking care of him for 7 years. And then when his health takes a turn for the worst, her 3 very successful siblings come back home and try to take care of the situation. So it's about family, it's about forgiving the past, moving on with the future.
And what's the genre? How would you describe it?
It's a dramedy. So I mean, it is a drama, but it has definitely a lot of moments of levity, of humor. A coming of age story, kind of, but a decade too late.
I think I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the title, Indians in Cowtown. It is a catchy title. What inspired you to come up with that?
I had a really hard time finding a good title, and to be completely honest, my husband was like, how about Indians in Cowtown? And I was like, I think it's really interesting. You know, Indians is such a loaded word for, you know, Indigenous people, for South Asians. Nobody really knows what to call themselves anymore, you know, and so it's kind of cheeky, like the movie is. And Cowtown, obviously, it's, you know, a term of endearment for Calgary, Alberta. So it just seemed to fit.
What drew you to this project, Anand?
Well, I mean, coming of age 10 years too late.
So we can both relate to this. Right? It's nice to know.
Yeah, no, well, Agam and I had worked together. She was actually an actor in Chokeslam, a film that we made here, you know, years ago. And then she had written this wonderful script, and I think by way of my good luck, she came and approached us and said, hey, I've got this project I've been working on. And we read it and we just fell in love with it. It's like so many things in that script were so relatable for me and my experience. And I think I keep increasingly kind of finding parallels between the story and my life. So, I'm feeling really lucky to be part of it.
Now, Agam, you said this is the show's in Calgary, but you're doing Regina scenes. So what brings you to Saskatchewan, Anand?
Well, because we're producing the show together with my partner Kelly Blown, and so our company is based here in Saskatchewan, and we were able to get some good support from the government, and we have a really nice facility here, and I think the project is the right size. And part of me also was really, feeling like in this day and age of COVID, it's really a good time for us to really regroup and try to stay local and do what we can. And I feel like we're in a good place right now. I mean, there's a lot of tricky places out there to be shooting a film, and Saskatchewan to me feels like a bit of an oasis at the moment, and hopefully it'll stay that way.
Yes, indeed. You talk about the Punjabi Canadian experience in this movie, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when I was reading you shared the project proposal with me when you were proposing the project, and there's a quote from you, Agam, in this that I want to read it to you. And it says, quote, "I have always had a deep desire to make a character-driven film about a Punjabi Canadian family living in Canada." What drove you to do that with this project?
I grew up with some really great films like Bend It Like Beckham or East is East, and they're beautiful films, and they really resonated at the time. And the themes tend to be more about immigrant families in a new world who are not, like, they struggle with their identity. How Western are they? How Indian are they? And I think that's a theme that was very relevant for a long time, but I think it's been recycled a lot. And I really wanted to write something that felt more honest to the way I was brought up, which is, I did go through that a little bit, but I think I feel very Canadian. I feel very at home here. I feel more Canadian than I do Indian sometimes, And so I wanted to really bring light to a family who lives in Canada, who, have their own traditional elements, and but who feel incredibly Canadian, and so many people can, I think, connect to that. And I think it's a very truthful, honest way that I grew up, and that I think a lot of my peers grew up.
Well, you've expressed the Indo-Canadian experience in some of your projects very clearly, Anand. So is that what drew you to this project as well, because of that parallel that you see?
Yeah, I mean, I have been interested in those things, and I think Agam's story really sort of touched on some new, opened up some new kind of stories and feelings that I could relate to, So I think what she's doing is just uniquely her own, and it's just felt really like a natural fit to do whatever I could to help get the project.
So what is the Punjabi Canadian experience on the prairies anyway? Because you grew up in Calgary, so you have a pretty good sense.
You know what? That's a really good question. I think, and I appreciate you asking it, because I think sometimes we all get slotted into the same sort of bucket of, like, you're South Asian, so all of your experiences are the same. And I think when you're Sikh, it's one of the largest diasporas outside of India. And so you're very used to just feeling like you have a complicated relationship to India and to the so-called motherland, whereas, for example, I had a lady I'm directing this film, and I had a lady that I had originally approached, wonderful director who is Hindu Canadian, and she felt very differently about what happens in the end of this film, and that perhaps, the characters should be more connected to their Indian roots and go back to India or something like that, which, spoiler, doesn't happen. But I mean, I think it was really interesting, because I was like, no, like they have to stay in Canada. They're definitely here, and they feel very at home here. And I think maybe that's part of the difference, is that we don't necessarily have a home to go back to. So we're here, and we have kept some of the traditions incredibly strong as a result. Punjabis are known to be pretty loud and wild, and but have a strong link and a strong appreciation for their culture and for their religion. So I think that, and also really feeling very Canadian.
Of course, my parents are from Greece. I grew up here. There's kind of a parallel there for sure. We saw in the setup here a scene from the movie that's being released now called Funny Boy. You play a prominent role in that. And you worked under the direction of an Oscar-nominated director, Deepa Mehta. Now you get to direct your own. Here, what have you taken from?
Don't mess with the grand diva. Don't mess with the grand diva. Yes!
She was a force to
Sonali, would you take Archie as your lawfully wedded wife?
I do.
Archie, would you take Sonali as your lawfully wedded husband?
I do.
and worked really hard at the nuances in the performances, which I think is why it's turned out to be such. I mean, it's beautiful in many ways, you know, cinematically and stuff, but the acting is really quite profound in that film from all across the board. And some of her actors didn't have any experience, you know, and I think she's able to just sort of bring something out of her actors because that really matters to her, you know. She keeps things really internal and makes sure that they're connected to the piece in a way that resonates. And we all have a 3-day rehearsal process before her films, you know, to make sure that we are, you know, let go of any ideas that we had and come out the other way, the other end as the actual characters. So all of those things really kind of gave a big impression to me.
Well, since I did one name drop, I'm going to do a second one. I noticed that Kim Coates, who's well known to Saskatchewan people, that he may be in the film. Is that confirmed that he will be in?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
What's he going to be doing in the film?
He plays the role of Brent, and again, he fell in love with Agam's script, and then spoke to Agam and fell in love with Agam. So this is a reoccurring theme on this project. So we're excited to have him on board. But you should tell him about the character of Brent.
Brent is like, you know, the good old Calgary boy. He's, you know, he's a man with a good heart who really cares for Mona. But he's married and has a family, so they can never actually really be together. And they just have a lovely relationship, though. It's a bit of a fantasy that will never actually be able to come to fruition.
I look forward to seeing that part of the film for sure. So you're here in Regina. You're scouting for locations, Anand.
Yeah.
What have you been looking at? What areas are you looking at for scenes from the movie?
Yeah, I mean, we've been all over the city. I mean, we're, you know, looking for a location for the Gurudwara. We're looking for a location for the funeral home and the house, the home of the family where a lot of the action takes place. So we've been exploring a bunch of different neighborhoods. There's even a scene on the bridge, so we're going to use one of Regina's 2 bridges to do that. And so it's been, you know, it's been great. It's been a really fun experience.
What, if any, engagement are you looking for from the local Punjabi community in this movie?
Anand? I'm glad you asked. That's a really big part of, I think, this project and the way that we should be approaching projects that are set in a community, right? And so we've connected with the Sikh Society of Regina, and then through them and one of their representatives, you know, we're connecting with other people in the community, and you know, our hope is that they'll get excited about the project, you know, as much as we are, and that we'll be able to collaborate on a whole bunch of things, you know.
So there may be locals who are extras in this movie.
Absolutely.
Is that what you're looking at?
That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. My mother actually is coming on board as the cultural consultant.
That's good.
Yeah.
And she's based where?
She's actually based in Vancouver.
She's in Vancouver,
yeah,
okay.
But she'll be coming on board and also just bridging that gap a little bit more between, you know, the Punjabi community here and us. You know, she can speak Punjabi and stuff, so whereas mine is not so good.
And you'll never hear the end of that from your mom. Why didn't she learn?
My entire life.
I know. I tell that to my kids. The Greek, because you got to do better with the Greek, you know. I understand all that. So you're nailing down the Regina location. So what's the schedule now?
We start pre-production at the beginning of December, and then we break for Christmas, and then we come back and we start shooting January 11th, and we go right through into February. And then there's a second unit shoot in Calgary to get some of the establishing shots, because Indians in Cowtown, it's...
You need the Cowtown scenes for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank both of you for coming in here and sharing this upcoming movie experience that I'm looking forward to seeing unfold in Regina and Calgary. Congratulations, and I wish you all the best.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Costa.
Thank you.
Thank you.